Everyone, we were having some technical difficulties. I changed some allowances on my camera because I've noticed that some of the apps, it was allowing to like open up my camera at any time, and I just was making sure that it was off. But when I did that, it wasn't allowing me to come back on the live mode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Soul Journey. Thank you for logging in. So far it's me. But anyways, today I have a very special guest. Her name is Kirsti Gallagher, and I've met her through GTA Reiki, through our Reiki shares, and then we kind of shared Reiki, and then we became friends, and we co-taught level 1 and 2. And she is a Usui Holy Fire 3 Karuna Reiki Master. She also does animal Reiki. She's also an animal Reiki practitioner and a medium. She's fantastic. I've had quite a few sessions with her, and I love her. She gets me. And so I'm just honored to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
So we have worked together very well, especially in teaching. So I'm happy to have you here. Let's see if we can just... That's my son logging in. Hi, buddy. Hi. What's up? So, let's just start with the questions. Okay. So the first question is, what would you like to share about your life journey so far that has led you to become a healer?
So I would say when I was little, I always had the ability to kind of, if I sat with somebody, felt like I could feel what they were feeling, but I didn't realize that it was unusual. And I would sometimes hear people talking to me that weren't there, and I just thought, well, it's my imagination, and it never really occurred to me that it was anything different. And so I always felt like I understood people on a deep level, but that's just the way I was. And as I grew, kind of thing, I started meditating and doing things like that, where I would quiet the mind and kind of get involved with different visions and stuff, and I realized that those visions were kind of having something to say. And so then I started to kind of follow that, but I realized that my body wasn't always calm, and so I felt like I needed a lot of movement, and it was frustrating to kind of sit there. And so I just was looking for different things, and I went and had Reiki done just on a whim. I didn't really know if it was what it was, or what it could provide for me. And I realized I had been to different doctors. I had physical symptoms that weren't life-threatening, but I felt ill, and I didn't feel myself, and I felt like my energy was sort of always off. And then I went to Reiki, and I was like, oh, well, that's different. Yeah. And that was a way to calm my body and to be in my brain at the same time. And so I started to kind of research it a little bit and did more meditation and kind of followed that kind of guidance. And then I ended up going to Reiki with Kristen Hunt, and then I decided to take her courses, and and then I went to GTA Reiki, and that was it. And then that's what I've been doing. It's kind of on the side. I've had a lot of Reiki clients and stuff like that, but it's always been sort of a side hustle. So that's kind of how I came upon this. And with animals, I just love animals. So they're special to me, and I always do Reiki on animals if they want it. So I just feel like that's my way of giving back.
Yeah, and you do specific Reiki on horses, right?
I do Reiki. I volunteer at a farm, and so I do Reiki with those horses all the time. And so I find that it's helpful when they've got little aches and pains, and you do find that they're calmer and they're hardworking, right? When you're a farm horse, you're a hardworking horse because they have a lot of riders. So that's my way of giving back to them, and also creating a nice bond connection.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. I love that. So you found Reiki as a way to heal yourself, and then upon that you're like, ooh, I need to get into this, and just became a healer yourself.
Well, I never considered myself a healer, but then when I took, it started with Reiki 1, and I hadn't really considered myself to be a healer. Like, I was always the person that my friends would come to, or people would tell me, so you'd be standing in a grocery store, and somebody like, my husband just left me, and you're like, okay, and how do you feel about that? And so it was a funny thing that always happened, and animals were always really connected to me, and it was just that kind of thing. And then when I did Reiki 1, I'm like, well, this is something special, because I could feel the energy. I could feel how it felt in the room to be around other people who did Reiki and the different intensity. And then I had to do the next course, and then I had to do the next course. And then I got my master's, and then after that, I had like a small business on the side, but I wasn't doing too much. But I had, people being referred to me and stuff like that. I did a lot of freebies back and forth, or like sharing with different Reiki masters, which we did, right? Yeah. And then when I went, I found Kimiko, and I did the Karuna Reiki with her, and that was just like a whole new world. Yes. I loved it so much and then that was just me. It was just, I felt like it was Reiki on, and I was ready to go all the time. So that was, for me, just finding different people and kind of being allowed to be a bit weird was good.
Good, wonderful. Hi, Nikki, how are you? So the next question is, have you discovered your life purpose, and how did that occur? So I don't know if it has to correlate with Reiki, and purpose doesn't have to be like your purpose for the rest of your life. Like, do you find that?
I think I'm still in search for my purpose. I don't know that I found the one purpose, but I will say that I also have a daycare business, and I do find that I do a lot of reaffirming with parents and listening to their issues and giving back. And I always find that people are like, you have such a nice insight into things. And so I would say that being a person to, one, soundboard, but also to give a little bit of extra, I don't know, validation, I think is good, and an open ear. So I would say that is part of what I do well naturally. So I would say that that's a purpose.
Yeah. And I think you're just a natural giver, and you're of service, right? Yeah.
And with the animals, that was just natural. And you will find that animals will come to you and sit with you, and they kind of ask, right? In their animal way. And then when you give it, people are like, what are you doing? Because that horse looks like it's about to fall asleep on you. And you're like, nothing. Yeah. But, so I feel like that is a purpose for me. Yeah. And I do work really well with kids and animals. So I would say that's another one just offside.
Yeah, definitely. No, I find too that sometimes you visit a friend, and the dog comes to them, and they're like all in your business, and they're like, my dog never acts like this with anybody. I'm like, Reiki hands.
I have special power. No.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what are some of the challenges you faced during your healing journey? And meaning, like, I know we're not done our healing journey, but what are some things that you'd like to share with us?
So I would say the biggest thing is I'm very comfortable in everybody else's emotions, but when it comes to mine, I'm like, whoa, no. I would do anything to get out of it. And I literally sometimes will do anything to get out of sitting in an emotion. And so I would say that Reiki has given me, opened the door for me to kind of sit and be like where the body feels calm and collected, to sit in that emotion. But I still struggle with that. And I still have to kind of remind myself that you learn so much more when you understand how you feel. Right. And to have that mirrored back. And I see that with my clients, really, like when I'm mirroring back to them how they feel, and they feel seen, and the emotions that can create, and feeling like I've been seen, I've been heard. If you can do that for yourself, I mean, that's big. And so I would say my biggest challenge is the road back to me. Right. And so the road back to hearing myself first and putting myself first. Like, I'm a great helper, but can I do that for myself? And being kind of not looking for the validation from other people, but to really kind of have that validation for me first. Yeah. So I would say Reiki has been, also volunteering at a farm is good for that. Working with horses is really good for that, but Reiki has been a way for me to just kind of calmly sit and just
allow and be.
You're right. It's allowing it to flow. So I would say that's been a challenge, but also a really something that I've actually worked through, not completely, but I'm getting there.
And I know we've talked about this, that when I find that I get clients that I have just gone through something, and then those clients come to me that mirror that.
That's right.
Or I need to look at something, and then those clients show up, and I'm going, ooh, I think I have some work to do on myself. When they leave, I'm like, okay, let's write this down. Let's make some time.
Well, and you get a little surprised, because then you're like, why am I going through all this week? I didn't even think that I did anything. And what is all this, like, control issues and shame and all this? And then you get your client that walks in, and you're like, oh, it was to help me to understand myself, but help me to understand you as well.
Yeah.
Right? Not
Yeah.
you, but
no.
you.
Yeah. Yes. I got it. I got it. So what is the one lesson that you have learned and share with your clients all the time, or share with people all the time?
The one lesson?
Yeah.
I think,
well, it could be many. We'll get yours.
you know, the one thing is really sitting and feeling. Just feel it. You don't have to ask why all the time. You don't actually have to know when you have a feeling. For me, the biggest thing was to be able to name what I was feeling in real time. So not having something come up and then kind of feeling dysregulated, and then I've got to walk away a little bit, and then, you know, sort of 8 o'clock that night, you're like, oh, I was actually just feeling really, I don't know, guilty about something. So it used to take me a long time to identify. And so now I would say that when I can name my emotions, it's empowering. One,
right,
to know how you feel. And then I don't feel like I have to kind of like go into all this stuff, and, you know, you're dysregulated for a while, and then you kind of come back and you're like, it's just this.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it's not just that. But if I can name it now, which
right.
I'm getting better at, and this is what I help my clients with as well, is that when you can name it in the moment, I have something to, like, okay, I'm angry right now. That's not a big deal. It's just anger. I'm not an angry, it doesn't make me an angry person
right.
or a shameful person or a guilty person. It just means that I feel angry right now.
Yes.
And usually that's a boundary cross. So it gives you information.
Yeah.
Right? So then you have all this information at your fingertips, whereas before I wasn't empowered in the same
right.
sense. I couldn't figure out what I felt, and so it would take me a while, and then I'd be like, well, that person's already left, so now how do I enforce a boundary that's been stepped over, and now it's the next day.
Right.
So that's been a huge lesson
yeah.
for me.
Yes.
And I love reteaching that lesson.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so identifying that emotion, it almost gives you power over it.
Yeah.
Where you go, okay, well, now that I feel anger, how do I use this anger? Do I want to use it to set that very firm boundary, or
yeah.
do I use it to call back my power, right?
That's
like
right.
you can choose kind of the different ways to use it.
Yeah. And to not feel like this makes you a certain way, because I felt, you know, the way I was brought up, if negative emotions were coming up, it meant that something about you was negative.
Oh.
And so I would fight, like, if I had negative emotions, like, well, no, we'll fix it. But you don't need to fix it. You just need to understand that that's how you feel. And again, it has its own purpose to let you know what's happening around you. So I would say that that's huge.
That is
really
big.
huge.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So the next question is it's an easy one, but it's a complex one.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I'm throwing away around the word healing, and I think every healer has a different interpretation of healing, right? Or has a different connotation of what it means, right? So what does healing mean to you?
Healing to me, I would say it's being heard and seen. First and foremost, is that to really look at somebody and say, you know, I see that you are feeling blank, or
yeah.
I feel this coming from you. And a lot of times you'll get somebody burst into tears because they just needed somebody to see it in them. It's not that they didn't know, but they've pushed it away.
Yeah.
And so I would say that that is the first step to really opening somebody's hearts and to themselves, and to just feel that like somebody really saw me and how I feel and who I am. And that is, I think, one of the biggest gifts you can give. And it's happened for me where I've been in a Reiki class or whatever, and somebody's turned around and said whatever to me, and I've just been like, oh, like somebody just put into words what I feel.
Yeah. And
that is a huge big deal.
Yeah.
You do it with your kids, right? When you've got a 3-year-old who's like, I can see you're frustrated, and they go,
yeah,
and they just come down because it's like, I just needed somebody to help me.
Yeah,
right?
Or even, especially with kids identifying that feeling, because they don't know what that means, right?
Right?
They're just learning what it feels.
And with the horse, like for instance, when I'm on the farm, they call me the boo-boo finder. Because the horses will come to me, and it's not like they have words, but often I'm like, oh, like their tummy, they're starting to colic, or, you know, this one has something wrong with their eye, kind of thing. And that's the same thing. Like, you've seen them, you see what the issue is, and you can help.
Yeah.
Because they only have a certain way of telling you, right?
Right.
And
yeah, you're speaking energy. That's what you're doing.
Speaking energy.
Yeah.
That's a perfect way. Yeah.
Thank you. No, I know what you mean, because something happened to me a while back. And then I had a friend of mine, and I explained to her what happened, and she looked at me and she said, "I'm so sorry that happened to you." And I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know I needed that." And now I find it that when my son comes and tells me about like, oh, these people at school and blah, 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 and it's like, "I'm so sorry you're feeling that way."
Yeah.
And it just kind of stops him and goes, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah.
Like I know how now I make it a point that if somebody shares something that's affecting them, just say, "I'm sorry that you're feeling that way." And like I remember how much I feel seen when that happens.
They don't have to fight to be verified.
Right.
They don't have to make their case like, I'm important and see this happen to me. It's like you say, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened." And you're like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay, I don't have to fight. I can just tell you the story."
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No, 100%. Yeah. So the next question is, what do you love most about your gifts and your healing talents?
I would say, which might sound weird, it is about other people, but it's the quiet that comes from it. It's the real quiet that you feel when you sit down, and even when I'm doing a self-healing or something like that, that I can sit in energy that is quiet. And it's just me, and I'm calm, and the energy is calm, and I have the ability to pull it down, right? So it's like, you've had a hectic day, your phone's going, your kids need you, the cat's sick, whatever, right? The car is doing whatever. And then you come home and you just kind of sit down and take a breath, and I can pull that energy down and just sit for a moment and be quiet for a minute. And that might last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's a lifetime, right? And when I have a client who comes in and they're loud, right? Like I'll describe their energy as loud kind of thing, right? Because they've got, "Well, I'm supposed to do this and I should have done that. And I've got to, and they sit down and they go, "Oh." And they stop talking, and you can hear them finally inside themselves, and they're quiet, and they're calm, and they feel good. Yeah. And most people will say, "That's the quietest it's been for me in about a month." And I'm like, yes,
I love that.
Right? So to me, that's the moment. And it's the same when you're working with animals. Because I volunteer on a farm, and we got lots of riders and all that kind of stuff. When you just sit with a horse and you're quiet and there's no input on them, right? Like they've got reins, they've got a saddle, they've got a loud rider oftentimes, right? There's doors closing, and you're just quiet for them. And they offer that quiet back. Yeah. But when you offer that quiet for them, you see them just kind of like, and the muscles, and it's 2 minutes, but that 2 minutes can be a lot. Yeah. Right? Yeah, because then they can emphasize and work with that inner peace to grow, right? And to know, okay, this is part of that me, right? And I will say, if you work with a horse, they'll always give it back. So whatever you give to them, they always give it back. So that's another beautiful thing.
Wonderful. Yeah. How do you find that your gifts make you unique? Like maybe it could be the niche or the kind of work that you do, right? You work with animals, so that kind of makes you unique.
I feel like I have a specific gift with my voice. And when I explain things, people tend to hear it. People often say, like, I've heard that, but I haven't heard it like you said it, kind of thing. And it just hits in a certain tone. So I don't know that I can take credit for that, but I would say that my voice tends to be healing. And, especially when somebody's asking for help. I don't know what it is, or you feel like you're channeling from somewhere else, or, I haven't totally understood whatever it is, but I do find that when I talk to people, it tends to put them in a calmer state, and they do tend to understand the message. And I would say that I think that's unique.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I also find, because I know you, that you have a way that you phrase things. And I've said this to you before, sometimes you say things and I'm like, she doesn't realize how brilliant she is. She doesn't realize how brilliant she is, and how she's describing something that is so hard to put into a physical form, but you're doing it so easily. And I'm like, I remember when we first taught, I was in awe, because I was like, she just phrased that so beautifully. And I hope,
you want to be my PR person?
Well, I hope people, I hope you appreciate, and that's why I wanted to tell you, because I hope you appreciate the brilliance and the wisdom that you're putting forth.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's amazing. Right?
Well, and I feel like, I work with kids, so oftentimes I have to take something that's complicated and explain it to them in a way that they can digest it. Yeah. And I think that that's part of the gift, is that taking something that you can, so somebody can digest the meaning. Yes. It's not so much that I'm giving you something you haven't heard before. It's just a way to digest it and to understand, oh, okay. Right?
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. So what are some of the projects you're working on now? I know you're kind of getting busy with some new things.
So right now I'm starting to open myself up to more business. I've been a little bit closed off. It is still a part-time business for me, but I'm opening myself up to more clients. I've recently opened up to doing, I'm calling it a ladies' day. That's not actually what it is, but you get friends that get together, they host the event, and I come and provide Reiki for, 4 to 5 people. It's probably not going to be a ton more than that. Otherwise, we're going to invite more Reiki practitioners in. But so that's a new thing that I've been doing. And I was a little worried how that would work. So I'm like, that's a lot of people back to back.
Yes.
But it works beautifully. And it's a great way for clients to, one, get Reiki with their friends and have their friends experience it. But also it's sort of like the tea and comfort afterwards that you can kind of sit and with your friends and kind of, download what happened for you, and everybody has an experience to share. Right. And everybody takes something away from Reiki. I have never met a client who wasn't, who didn't go away with something. So for me, I thought that was a really good way. And a friend of mine, she's, she just called me. She's like, okay, I have all these people who want to come. And she's like, could you do it? And I thought, well, maybe we could do like a Reiki circle. And then I was realizing like they won't get the one-on-one. It won't mean the same. So I'm like, I'll do it this way and see if it works. And it worked great. Wonderful. And everybody had a really good experience. And I've already booked another one.
Yay!
So yeah,
that's so exciting.
So that's something that I've been working on, and I'm opening the doors a little bit. I think I've been in the spiritual closet.
Yes.
So I've only done referrals, and now I'm going to put myself online a little bit and see what happens. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then that's the reason why I'm having this, because everybody needs different healers at different times. And I think you're just one of the top-notch quality healers.
Well, thank you. And I think the same of you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what, I know you just talked about like the Ladies' Day Reiki party thing, but what other services do you provide besides that?
So I do one-on-one Reiki. I can do meditation with you if you need somebody to help you with it. I have done for clients where I sit down and kind of take them through like a Reiki meditation. And then so while they're meditating, getting their own experience from it, I'm also sending Reiki to them and also getting messages for them as well. So that we kind of can collaborate a little bit and they can get their own experience from it and we can add to it. Wow. And that's done for some people who aren't really comfortable with meditating, they want a buddy. That's a good way to do it, where it is a personal experience.
That's
right?
Neat.
Yeah. So you're not in a class where, you might be with people that you don't know and are a little uncomfortable, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But sometimes you're dealing with stuff that's private.
Right. And sometimes it's hard, especially if you're a highly vibrational person, it's hard to open up your energy to just anybody.
Right.
So to have somebody trusted that is going to go in there and is going to take care of you and is looking to your highest good helps as well, right?
I've helped some clients of mine with their children. Recently I was able to channel a message from a person's, she was taking care of her grandmother who has dementia and she's unable to communicate anymore. And so I was able to channel a message back to her, which actually made sense to her.
Wonderful.
And so she was able to get a little bit of closure and feel like she was connected to her, because it's at that stage where she looks like her, but she's just not her anymore. And that was super healing. And that's a great thing for a caregiver. Yes. So I have worked in hospitals with people who are in states where they can't necessarily communicate, and I've been able to get a message.
Wonderful.
So I don't do that often. That's usually a special ask. Like it's not something that I would
Somebody's just reaching out and going, hey.
Yeah, it's usually somebody who's like, hey, I've got somebody, can you go? Everybody asks for Reiki for the person who's ill, but it's the caregiver. And we talked about this a little like at the GTA Reiki this week. Yeah. And you know what? It is the caregiver who's usually like, the person who's ill, I'm not saying they don't need Reiki, but they have a purpose and everybody around them is sitting around wringing hands. Yes. And, things change and they don't know what they're doing. And so it's nice to have that communication between the two where you feel like, okay. Yeah. And also I've helped people with animals who are passing and transitioning, and just so they can feel a little bit better about their decisions that, we really are at the end and it might be time to say goodbye.
So you do in-person one-to-one, but you do a long distance as well.
Oh yeah, I do distance Reiki as well. I've done a lot of that. I have a lot of family in the UK and we've done it back and forth. And actually one of my cousins is a Reiki master as well. And so we've traded.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
that was awesome, right? So I do a lot of distance Reiki as well, and I've been asked by other people to help people, obviously distance in a hospital situation, and I've helped to relay messages that way.
Wonderful.
So that you're not in contact with the patient, because sometimes that is a breach of privacy.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I only need the energy. I don't need to come in and you know, disrupt everything.
Yeah, because sometimes we just need a name, and I like a picture because I like to kind of imagine
I do
in my head, but you don't need that.
I don't really need a picture.
No.
You know, my stepfather is very brainy, and he always says, well, what is it, like an IP address? And I'm like, well, kinda. I'm like, you literally put your intention towards the person that you're looking for, and they do come.
Yeah.
And they do come into focus for you. So it's a great way to do it. And during COVID, it was perfect because people were not getting together, but you still need help, right?
Yeah.
So
and you need that connection, right? Like to source in other people.
That's right.
Yeah. For sure. And the last question is, where can people find you? Like, so if they want to book a ladies' day, or if they want to have a one-on-one with you, how can they?
So I'm a dinosaur. I'm setting up my Instagram now. I'm sorry. You can look me up on Facebook. It doesn't have any of my business information, but you can look me up on Facebook under Kirsti Gallagher.
Yeah.
You can also email me, which is KIRSTIG369@gmail.com. And I can take it that way. Or you can text me, which is 289-200-5513.
I'll make sure to put those details when I post the live again, so then you guys can have it. And when you have your Instagram ready, I'll maybe do a little post for you.
Perfect.
And
that
then
would be
people
great.
can love to get hold of you. Well, Kirsti, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
I'm so happy for you. I'm glad you're getting out there. The world definitely needs healing, and needs your kind of healing.
Thank you.
So I'm so happy to assist that, and to let the world know of this beautiful being next to me. So with that said, thank you everybody for coming and watching. Send you all lots of love, and I will see you next Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.